I'm Gary Birtles, one of the old gits from a long time ago. You've got to tune into Tricky Talks, I believe, so just do it. All the best.
Robertson, the first time we've seen them attack them, and there's Francis! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robertson do. And still Robertson, getting his shot in, and a goal! Robertson!
Hello, welcome along to the Tricky Talks podcast. You know, guys, I was tempted to play the Nottingham Forest on Magic clip, but it's the only time when Forest lose but win, so I wasn't sure whether to play it or not. So I'm not going to, because we didn't actually lose. But anyway, it was the fireworks at the City Ground as Forest clinched a place in the last 16 with a 2-1 home defeat to Fenerbahce, and that sounds weird as well. Here with me to provide their own fireworks for the podcast are Kate and Mollo. How are you doing, Kate?
I'm alright. I've just about got myself together after yesterday, which I found absolutely excruciating. But yeah, travel booked, so more upbeat again now.
Yeah, we'll talk about Midtjylland in the next round later. But Mollo, you're here as well. Are you recovering from last night? I think you quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm all good. That's what being a football fan's all about, isn't it? A bit of edge, a bit of needle, a bit of drama, a bit of being worried and 1 minute, happy the next, celebrating a losing goal like it was a cup final win and all, yeah, when we scored and that type of thing. Yeah, I love all that, and apart from the damage to the ground, I didn't really mind the Turkish fans being a bit leery as well, to be fair. I thought it added to the whole thing.
Yeah, let's start with that actually, because they did play a significant part in the evening, good and bad. Start with the good, obviously, dressed in their multicoloured ponchos, which was a bit of a weird combination of blue and yellow with a bit of black thrown in the middle. They did generate a good atmosphere, as you would have expected, but the bad, obviously, throwing the fireworks on the field at kick-off and the damage to the seats that I presume they did after the game. Just a few words on that, guys, on the Turkish fans.
Brainless and not surprising for a small number. Looking at the damage, it'll be a good few quid's worth of damage, but I guess it was a bonus game. They must have made a fair bit of money last night, so it's not like Forest can't afford it. And looking at the prices for today that have come out for the next game, the Forest are going to be rinsing us again, clearly. So they shouldn't have done it. Terrible thing to do. Idiots. That's not hooliganism in the, nutcase sense of the old days. That was awful. It's just vandalism, petty vandalism.
Just talking about the fireworks before the game and the stuff they threw on the pitch, Kate, I wondered if there was a theory behind the teams swapping ends at the start. I wondered if Fenerbahce won the toss and decided to swap, knowing that was going to happen, with a view to, because obviously it was the end Forest were defending, and I wondered if it was kind of not planned from the club perspective, but something they might have expected to happen to kind of throw Forest off a little bit at the start.
I mean, do you think they thought about it that much? It doesn't seem like they thought about very much, does it? Do you know, when it started and they were holding the flares up and it was the bang, 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 like, the first thing that goes through your head, and I know it went through a lot of people's heads, was, how is it that I can't take a bottle of water in to Fenerbahce? I've got to sit on this bus, be taken all the way around, I've got to be, all of that we went through, which I know we said at the time, you do it, you follow the rules, it's fine, we had a great time, I'm not knocking it, Turkey was incredible, but I literally couldn't take a bottle of water in, and yet there are a lot of flares. That's not one guy who's managed to poke a flare down his sock, right? That's not what's happened there. That's a serious amount of pyrotechnics that they've managed to get in. How was that happened? And also, like, why is it happened? I mean, I know they said they made one arrest, and I'm not even saying that I necessarily think they should be arrested for it, because they tried it, they did it, it had the desired effect, they threw them. As far as I'm aware, nobody got injured, which, is important. But it just, the whole thing, it was just a bit like, really?
Yeah. And nobody got injured as far as I'm aware. There were reports one flare got thrown into the stand, and also I heard, I don't know whether it's the same incident, but a flare got caught in the netting above the away fans and actually caught fire, which they had to put out. So don't know when that was, but I have seen a little bit of footage on social media to support that.
And
Also,
obviously we had the 200 fans right behind us, you know, the UEFA ones that you have to put, they always put them behind us. The first ones that have been vocal, so we very much knew they were there, but I have to say that I did have a moment when those flares started going off, and I thought, if any of that lot have got any that are behind us because they're so far back and they start lobbing them, then we're in some trouble. And luckily that didn't happen, because that would have been not good at all.
I wonder
think there
if
was enough people that have stepped in to make sure that they couldn't carry on with that, either stewards or, you know, they're only a few yards from A block. Can I just add to that? I think there's two things that you said there, and just to add on to what you said as well. Not only about the pyrotechnics, I'll be brutally honest, I don't really mind them. I think it adds to things. I thought it was really crap when Forest banned them. I used to love it when the red flares went off in A block and that, even though they nearly choked me to death, the people that did it. But what's worse, let's be clear about this, what should have been sorted out, I can't get the lid to my Coca-Cola into A block, right? Somebody got a Derby top in there. That's what needs to be talked about.
Into A block?
No,
into
no chance. No, they wouldn't get out.
Lie. He's done them all, hasn't he?
Idiot, absolute idiot.
Of him on social media doing like the Superman thing with his little sheep.
That's what needs to be talked about and dealt with. I know it's like, as they said on commentary, it's the closest they'll ever get to Europe, but that's not the point. I don't want my ground soiling with that unnecessarily. Once every 20 years or whenever we next play them is enough. So let's be clear. Getting a Derby top in usurps all of the pyros, and they shouldn't be throwing pyros. I agree with that. Although I do love that whole thing it brings. You know, when we're at Wembley and people in the Green Man and whatnot. Although it didn't end well, obviously for Ellie, but it was still, it all adds to it. And I would have loved it if those 200 fans had been waving pyros in I keep calling main stand, the Peter Taylor. I just love the edge it all brings. Do you know what I mean? Because as we saw on the overlap recently, football's become too sanitised in the crowd. You know, you can't take a bottle lid in, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't say this, you can't say that. You need a bit of an edge. The atmosphere, I've loved that atmosphere when we were over there. It was so edgy, it was loud, and it was exciting. I know that sounds a bit like childish almost, but it was mega, and it was alright. It was a very unique experience in its own way. But even when there were moments at Betis away where you thought, wow, why isn't it like this in England anymore most of the time? And dare I say, it's not like it was at Forest even 2 years ago now, is it? At the moment, hopefully that will change. Anyway,
it is a different world though, and
yeah,
you've got a lot of other things to take into account, and making pyrotechnics in grounds safe is a huge ask. And I hear what you're saying, and wanting to hark back to the good old days and all of that. In reality, I don't know if it's for me.
Was that aforementioned Green Man incident the one where Ellie's trousers caught fire?
Yeah.
Is that the one? Yeah. I vaguely remember that, actually.
But because the security guard threw it, not a supporter. He grabbed it off a supporter who was holding it in the air and threw it.
So funny story on that. So when all the pyrotechnics were going off and they'd had to stop the game and they were on the pitch and they were stamping them out, a guy sat about 3 rows in front of me gets his vape out, has a couple of drags on his vape, and the stewards, you know, on him like that, literally one of them's wagging his finger at him and saying, if I see you do that again, you are straight out. You are not allowed to vape in this ground. And he literally stood up and went, I don't think I'm the problem. And I'm not saying that he should be able to vape in the ground. I'm not saying that, but it was just funny.
I know someone in T block, and you've just reminded me. While all this was going on, and they lobbed one over, and they were lobbing bottles. the stewards were going nuts at T Block, telling everyone to sit down every time anyone stood up. Like, that's the problem. Tell me football's not become too sanitised. And, you know, I could be completely wrong here, but when you see the grounds abroad where it looks like there's practically, you know, a light show going on in the stands, I've yet to read about any injuries in those type of things. And I'm talking to someone who hates fireworks. It's a phobia almost. But I don't know. The only thing I wouldn't go so low as is to allow a drum into the Forest crowd. That's too far.
Bit
or
artificial.
ultras and all black t-shirts and all that rubbish. But yeah, I'm not defending them in any way, shape or form for chucking the pyros at people. The ones that landed on the, in front of the stand that didn't go on the pitch, yeah, it's probably not ideal. But having them, I don't know. It made what was a fairly dull kind of thinking. I didn't go to the game last night thinking, I really can't wait for this. But it livened it up, didn't it, for sure? It gave it a bit of an edge.
Aren't you by default in A block the Forest Ultras anyway, Molo?
No
Just
such
not
thing as
wearing black?
ultras. I wasn't even aware I wasn't wearing black. But
No,
there
but
are no
even so,
Forest
he's-
ultras. We don't
no
have
other-
ultras, we just have supporters at Forest.
Yeah, talking of damage, just a quick word on Ryan Yates' finger.
Ooh.
I've got a really good view of that right in front of me, and it's credit to Ryan Yates, he didn't bat an eyelid. He got bundled over in a tackle. He just sat there, held up his hand, looked at the bench and beckoned them to come over. He didn't look in any pain. He got it taped up and he carried on. Even though, God, it looked so painful and gory. That must have hurt. But
His whole
credit to him, he got
arm
on
must
with
have
it.
been so sore by the end of that first half. That's
Yeah, I do wonder if that's why he got taken off at half time. But
100%.
yeah, maybe not.
Maybe the
We'll
finger,
talk
maybe
about
the
that.
crapness, don't know.
Well, if it was down for crapness, Ando would have gone first on last night's show, wouldn't he?
It
Yeah.
does say a lot about the game that we're 12 minutes in and we haven't even started talking about the game yet. So let's get on to that. Obviously the right outcome, but the wrong result. What did you guys make of the team selection? Because I know Pereira said before the game he needed to strike a fine balance between putting out a strong enough team but making sure people got some rest, and I think he made 6 changes, and I was pleased that, not necessarily pleased with the starting lineup, but pleased that he recognised it wasn't working at half time and changed it and put 4 of the big guns on, because I don't think somebody like Sean Dyche would have done it that early. I don't think Postecoglou would have done it early either, so I was pleased that he recognised it early, kind of realised he'd made a mistake and he needed to do something about it, and did it. And obviously that helped a lot in the second half. But what did you guys think, both of the team initially and the changes he made at half time?
Didn't like it when I saw the team. It was the opposite of what we'd said, which was start strong, rest them if you've managed to put the game to bed. It was too many changes. It was too Wrexham-esque for me, and
That's a new
it
word,
was, wasn't it?
Wrexham-esque.
Yeah. And I looked at it and I thought, oh dear. And it proved to be so, because it is yet more evidence, isn't it, that I know I keep saying second string is not very good. It's not very good. And actually, I think, if you're going to make that many changes and put on players that we've seen so far this season not do well and make things more difficult, actually what you're doing to your starting 11 is making the ones that are on the pitch have to work a hell of a lot harder, and equally, when you make your changes, the ones that come on have to work a hell of a lot harder. So does that actually get them a rest? I'm not sure that it does.
Well, you say that. I did had a thought about these changes, and I'll ask you about this, Mollo, but we say we wanted to start strong, to get the game pretty much done and dusted, and then take off all of the big guns, give them a bit of a rest. And you could say that probably would have been no sooner than 60-65 minutes. It certainly wouldn't have been done at half time, I don't think, but let's assume all of the first 11 would have played 60, 65 minutes. The game was done, they'd have gone off and got a bit of a rest. We'd have been happy with that, wouldn't we, in terms of how that would have panned out. But if you think about it, and I'll ask you about this, Mollo, Jesus, Aina, Hudson-Odoi, Sangare and Murillo only played 45 minutes. Morgan Gibbs-White only played 6 minutes. Milenkovic didn't play at all. So that's 7 players played 45 minutes or less of your first 11. Had you done what we would have wanted at the start, played 60 to 65, under that scenario they would have actually played more. So ultimately we've got the right outcome in terms of progressing, and 7 of your big guns have played less than 45 or less, which is great because they've got that extra rest you may not have given them had they played the original 60-65 minutes that we were talking about. The downside and the flip side to that, of course, is that Anderson, Williams and Hutchinson all played the full 90 and Dominguez played 84. So that's the flip side. But what do you make of that, Mollo? I think looking at it like that, it doesn't sound as bad.
I don't know. I'm a advocate. You play your strongest team always, and no one knows what would have happened because obviously they came out to try and make things happen, and we came out to allow them to make things happen. It felt like, and you haven't mentioned Ortega played the whole game and has now has become injured. My view is you start your strongest team. If we get to half time at 0-0, the tie's virtually over. If we nick a goal and it's 4-0, the tie's definitely over. The difficulty is, of course, if they start strong still, because let's be fair, we have some really fantastic players in our first 11 who were terrible last night. Okay, and I'm not going to name names because everyone watched the game. We know who it was, and if I name one of them, Kate might hit me. Okay, but they were awful, absolutely awful.
She'll hit you with a pyrotechnic.
Yeah, she'll throw something at me.
A virtual one.
But it was just one of those days, and I think Kate's absolutely. I'm not sure they work harder, but it's almost like the level of the whole team drops because of what they're working with, which shouldn't happen. And it certainly shouldn't have happened in midfield because we had 2 very good players in there. And I suspect if Yates hadn't have got injured, it might not have been him going off at half time, potentially, because of course Ando's a top class player and he turned it around at times in that second half. But he was a shadow of the player he normally is, wasn't he? Giving the ball away, losing tackles and so on and so forth. I thought it was a backward step for Hutchinson. It's a sort of game where he did quite well out there and he could shine and he struggled. Trying to flip it on its head. So in essence, sorry Simon, I'm kind of disagreeing, but to all of them to have played 65 minutes and we might have found ourselves 1-0 down or 2-0 down still, then what do you do? Do you start changing it? Do you make them play 90? Because as you say, Anderson's played 90, Williams has played 90, and if anyone has got the right to have an off day and also look tired, it is Williams. Although I don't think he looked tired, he just kept slipping over and stuff, didn't he? I didn't think Aina looked too good when he came on to start with. That said, we turned it around for 5 or 10 minutes, got the goal, created a few chances, which of course we didn't score. And then the biggest, like really sitting back and watching it, the positive is we're through, and that's all that matters. Doesn't matter if you'd have said to me 2 weeks ago we're going to win 4-2 on aggregate, I'd have bit your hand off. I don't care how it comes. But here's something: I've been very critical of one of our players, and for 46 minutes yesterday, he just carried on the same. Couldn't tackle, barely headed it unless it was like a free header. And our 6'4" Jair Cunha, who's lovely on the ball, and someone turned to me and said during the game, he looks like a Gareth Williams type player. He should be playing in midfield. He's so comfortable on the ball, but his defending's awful. After he gave that penalty away, something changed in him, and he suddenly, for about however long was left, we saw a glimpse of what we might get to see in the future. I thought Morata, and I know I'll get slaughtered for this, played quite well, to be fair.
No, I think
ironically,
you're right.
won his headers, won his tackles. Obviously gave the ball away from time to time, but not as badly as normal. People are hard on Morata because he had 1 or 2 poor games, and he's always having to replace Murillo, and he's not Murillo. Nobody's Murillo. If he was replacing Milenkovic, it's more like for like. Still a big drop off, of course, because Milenkovic is absolutely class and experience. But for me, the João Cunha that we saw for the last 35-40 minutes, I suddenly thought, that's why we signed him. And that's the positive. And I know I'm digging deep, I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel for positives, because I know we haven't done man of the match, but I think the man of the match is an absolute given. Although I thought the only outfield player to come out with any credit in the first half was Dominguez. In the first half.
I do want to talk about the three Brazilians, actually, because they had varying degrees of performance level, if you like. Murillo, I thought, was pretty poor in the first half. I thought Morato was... The thing with Morato is, if he doesn't make a mistake, you don't notice him. And I didn't really notice him because he didn't make a mistake. And then Jair Cunha, I did want to talk about, because, like you, I saw glimpses towards the end. I thought, is this a player that... It was because it was his home debut, of course. For a lot of people, it was the first time they'd seen him. I thought, is there something there that is worth looking at further and giving him some more minutes somewhere? And those were the questions I was coming away with in terms of the defensive performance for those three in particular. What do you think, Kay? Were you sat there thinking, God, how awful was Murillo? And considering he was down our side in that first half, wasn't he? So we got a first-hand view of him. And what did you think of Cunha?
I thought it was shambolic. That's the only word I can use to describe it. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know what they were supposed to be doing. But whatever they were supposed to be doing, I don't think it was that. And I, like you, yes, Cunha in the second half, because I was half expecting him to be hooked at half time, because in the first half I thought, oh my God, and not just defensively, like everywhere, what on earth is going on? But second half he was improved. Murillo had a terrible game. He did have a terrible game. He looked like he was out of position. He looked like he didn't know what he was doing.
He was out of position.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. But he looked like he was out of position, and he didn't know what he was doing. And yet still, I wouldn't necessarily have hooked him at half time, just because he's so key to what we do and get
not a left back.
Well, no, true. But there again, that's what I mean. It's just shambolic, isn't it? It's another one of those games when the performance is that bad, and it's that bad everywhere. Because you're right, Anderson had a shocker, and Lorenzo Luca. I mean, good God, words fail me. It's everywhere, and it's awful. So, it was just another really, really bad day at the office, that first half, and I was deeply concerned. I think I put in the chat group, I am not coping. I wasn't coping with watching it at all, because we discussed on the pod, the PTSD and them completely cocking it up, and that is exactly what was unfolding in front of our eyes. And I was head in hands. I was like, I can't believe this is going to occur again.
Did you put your head in your hands and miss, Kate?
Yeah.
Because that's what it felt like Forest were doing all the way through that first half. But
it was hopeless again, wasn't it?
Yeah. Like, don't you think some of that is because Fenerbahce was so bad last week, and we were very, very good, and you can only beat what's in front of you, and they had to raise their game. They couldn't be that bad and be the club and team they are. And it's almost like, I think we've talked about this before, when we've had an easy game, we've often followed it up with a bad performance, haven't we? I think Tottenham was the classic one, but then we went to Everton and we were hopeless. And I felt last week's game, credit to the players, they did what they had to do, but I actually felt it was quite an easy game. We overran them with energy and everything else. They've still got some good players. We'll talk about, I can't say his name very well, Gudes, and the ex-Arsenal player, whatever some people seem to think was a Leicester player, but the guy who played centre-back, he was very good, and he was good last week as well. And we were talking about, I wonder how much he would cost to be a kind of backup player who could cover two positions as well, as not such a drop-off. So they aren't as bad a side, and they opened us up way too much, that's for sure, and it could easily have been 3-3 at half-time if they'd have took their chances, and if we hadn't got a fantastic keeper on the day. But going back to Jair Cunha, the one thing that I thought is, because he's obviously quick, And for the goal, the first goal, he made the ground back, and then he didn't look at the guy, and it was right in front of us, and I thought, oh, he's cut out the angle, and he just kept running and left a massive gap for an easy pass across. I wish the Wolves player had done that a few weeks ago, but anyway, I agree wholeheartedly with what we're saying, but we've got to give a little bit of respect to what they tried to do.
Yeah.
You know, you've got. We were bad. And the thing about Murillo, out of position or not, it was his 10 or 20 yard passes. I mean, that's just basics, isn't it? And it was attention to detail sometimes. And Luca looked exactly like Chris Wood looked when we first signed him when he hadn't played for ages, didn't he? That's the only hope I'm clinging on to.
Yeah, that is. He doesn't certainly look like the solution, does he, up front?
No.
Not at the moment.
What I did say before we left to go to the game was that a team that have got nothing to lose can be very dangerous.
Yes.
And
With players missing.
Yeah, and they did play like that because they were already 3-0 down. They had a buttload of injuries. You know, the expectation was that we would walk the game. They had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So they chucked everything at it. And kudos to them for that because we didn't handle it well at all. Yeah,
how were you handling it when it went 2-0, given the fact we'd just seen that dreadful first half, and then no sooner had the big guns come on, we go 2 down. I put a message in the chat saying, in big capital letters, it's happening, because I was just, the curse of Yeovil was rearing its ugly head, wasn't it? Given what I said last week in terms of where I sat for that one. And it just had Yeovil written all over it, didn't it, at that point? And I don't know what you guys were thinking, but I was explaining to Danny the horror stories of Yeovil and Norwich and Blackpool and all.
I'm going to ring Childline.
Yeah.
I did turn round to the boys at that point and say, I'm really, really sorry you were born into Nottingham Forest, boys. I'm so sorry. And they just kind of looked at me like, what?
Do you know what? Because of the nature of the game, by half time, I think I might have said this to you at half time, Simon, especially with all the changes, I felt like they'd missed their chance because they created really good chances, albeit that penalty was a bit scary and you thought, ooh. But I just felt, you know, and I'm going to say it, Sangare gave us a little bit more control in midfield, didn't he? He just the simple stuff, doing what we needed him to do, doing what he's good at, and he kind of, without wishing to sound disrespectful to anybody, us or them, he kind of was like, what was all the fuss about? You know, I'm not the world's best player and I'm dominating these Muppets. You know what I mean? It was kind of that. He did his job really well, and I think they expended a lot of energy. And I think, like Kate said, they had nothing to lose, and they had a much lower average age starting lineup than they did last week as well, which it sounds daft, but the energy was there for them, wasn't it? Not for us, clearly. And you know, we can go on about how bad we were, but who cares? We got through 4-2, and that's the important thing. And like you say, we didn't waste too many players. Okay, we've lost our goalkeeper again, but there we go.
Yeah, I think the game certainly was over when Callum Hudson-Odoi scored, and you could feel that sense of relief, couldn't you, when that went in, because you knew then the tie was pretty much done. But funny story, we were all celebrating that goal, and I was sat right behind the away dugout at the end where Domenico Tedesco was stood all game, and I kept an eye on him, partly because he was in my line of vision for pretty much the whole game anyway. But when that goal went in, he turned round to walk back to the bench where his coaches were sat right in front of where I was, and he looked over the edge of the bench to where we were, and I just shrugged and went like that, and he looked and he shrugged back, because he knew that was pretty much it then. The game was gone.
His next goal's a winner, is what we said at 2-0. Next goal's a winner.
Yeah, so he knew at that point he couldn't do anything about it. So, thankfully it all turned out all right in the end. But, God, we go through it, don't we?
That's what it's all about. Got to love it, haven't you?
Yeah, so Midtjylland in the next round, of course, round of 16. First leg is on the 12th of March. The second leg, as you guys are fully aware, is on the 19th of March. The kick-off times have just been announced, and in Denmark you've got the early kick-off. So you've got a 16:45 local time kick-off. Sorry, 18:45, beg your pardon.
Oh, that's all right.
18:45 local time kick-off in Denmark for the second leg.
Okay.
That'll do.
That's,
don't the ticket
that's quite
office.
good. That's quite
Yeah.
good, actually. I think that
Got
works.
to get back to wherever it is we've got to get back to. I just hope, and I hope the ticket office or whoever organises it don't have the ticket collection in some random stupid place, because it's not an easy place to get around anyway. And it almost looks like a village on the map, doesn't it, where the ground is. I presume we'll have to pick up in Blunt, whatever it's called, or Hurst, whatever it's called, I don't know, but because we're flying in on the day again, and just through circumstance and work and everything else, I hope the club think carefully about making it convenient for the fans and not just for where the staff are staying, but we'll see.
Yeah,
It was last time.
Just look for the nearest Radisson Blue. That's where it'll be.
Yeah.
Thoughts on the tie itself? Is it a case of
Brilliant.
obviously revenge, or do you think
Yeah.
Forest are going to suffer again, given the strengths and weaknesses of the two opposition? You'd like to think that Forest should be beating a team like Midtjylland, but to credit to them, they finished in the top four for a reason of the group stage, and obviously they beat Forest 3-2 at the City Ground, but that was under different circumstances with another manager in charge. Are you expecting or hoping Forest will get through, Kate?
I mean, we've had a preview, haven't we? So, really, in that respect, we should know what we need to do. They're going to be physical. They're going to beat us up. They're going to be, they're going to be playing balls in the air. It should be that we can look at the previous game and we can structure accordingly. Because still, I know we say this a lot, man for man, we should be able to beat them. It will, of course, be largely down to who he picks and if they're having a good day and they turn up. So, the other thing that we have to take into account is everybody going to be fit? Because we are getting towards the end of the season, and that starting 11, we just need to pray that they stay fit and drag us over the line in the Premier League and continue to allow us to have some fun going around Europe and in this competition.
We'll go into that in a moment, because I did want to talk about that. But just before we do you think, Mollo, that given the fact Midtjylland have got a team full of giants, the back four will be Morato, Milenkovic, Murillo and Cunha, given their heights? Tongue-in-cheek comment there, but it is a way to combat their team of giants, I guess.
Well, or not, seeing how we started with the back five when we played them before, didn't we, for some random reason. We had Morato, Murillo and Milenkovic. We had Ndoye and Williams, didn't we? And Anderson and Sangare, Hudson-Odoi and Gibbs-White in a front three with Jesus. So we went fairly strong at that time, worryingly, but we weren't strong back then, were we? Not even close to it. I look at it and I think, like Kate said, we've had the preview. There's no more surprises. There's no, we're playing a little Norwegian team. We know we've got it all on. We've got to be at it. We've got to win our battles. I'm not blaming the ref, but if we don't get a fussy ref who gives a free kick every 10 seconds when they flop to the floor and give them about 500 set pieces, that'll help. And then we'll see where it's hopefully, if Ederson's fit by then, not Ederson, I wish. No, if Ortega's fit by then, that'll help. Ortega. Of the two ties we could have had, I think this is the one that we've got the best chance of progressing on our own terms. There's been a little bit of hype about how great we were in the first half away at Betis, but Betis were very, very much, three of their back four missing, their best midfielder missing, and they were shambles, weren't they, in the first half, and we absolutely took them apart. They readjusted at half time, and it was an even second half, and in fact they effectively won the second half, didn't they, and got the draw. Over two legs, that would be a tougher tie, I suspect. But at this stage, it's kind of knockout football, but there's no surprises. I would back us to do it on this occasion. Nearer the game, I'll probably be panicking about something, but we were very strong, the side we put out when we played them before. I've been reading some stuff today about don't play the reserves this time against them like last time, and I've looked at the team and thought, at that point in time, okay, Morato, we had played that back five, but Jesus was the reserve, and so too. Ndoye was starting at that point in time, so I don't subscribe to that. Go there, do the job properly, and we should, in theory, be okay.
Okay, then we'll talk about that nearer the time in more detail, of course. But moving on, I did want to look at, and you touched on it there, Kate, around the bigger picture and squad depth, because it's clear the second string are not good enough to carry the team. Is it getting to the point soon where the manager will need to, I know that we've talked about these competitions are not mutually exclusive, but from his perspective, do you think he's going to have to make a choice soon to, or can he keep going as the way he's been going for the rest of the season in chopping and changing 5 or 6 changes game by game, trying to find the balance? Or because it feels like they can't win both. Do you know what I'm saying? They haven't got the depth to be able to cope with winning both. I mean, by winning both, I mean progressing in the Europa League and winning enough Premier League games to stay up. Where do you sit on that? Do you get that sense, or are you still hoping that he can continue to mix and match and get the best of both worlds?
You go, Marlo.
It's simple. Play your best side. There's 18 games left in the season if we were lucky enough, or good enough, should I say, to reach the final. And that's after the season. There's actually 17 games left until the end of the Premier League season, including league games and our cup games, if we were to play 2 semi-final matches. It's a simple thing for me. Get the momentum, play your best team. I know we didn't score goals, but we never scored goals, but I thought we looked pretty decent for 96.5 minutes against Liverpool with the same team that had done the job in Fenerbahce. And then we rested players, and we did not look a particularly good side in the first half last night. There might be room for the odd change and what might be perceived as the best team, such as, for me, I feel for him, but Dominguez is the guy that often comes in or comes out. You prioritise your next game, simple as that, and it frustrates the life out of me when I hear people saying, "Oh, it's only the Premier League that matters. It's only the Premier League that matters." I'm like, do one. I remember every game I've been to one way or another, but I remember the finals and the trophies more than any other, and I remember those enormous games where we got promoted, or dare I say, those enormous games where we've stayed up. I'm not interested anymore in bobbling along near the bottom of the Premier League for ridiculous amounts of money that we pay. With, let's be honest, not Forest-wise, but the Premier League, and it was on the overlap, like this boring side-to-side passing football that a lot of teams play. Let's go out there and try and win every single game. Simple as that. Go strong.
Kate, did you want to add to that?
I agree that we absolutely need to start strong. You always play the best possible team. I think that he made too many changes last night. I don't want to see that again. I really hope that that was a big learning curve for him last night. It feels like it needed to be, and that potentially does change his approach to how he selects, how he rests, and how he rotates. There has to be an element of that, but he's got to be very careful about who and when. And I really, really wanted to go through last night. I sat in the City ground and I thought, I want another go. I want another trip. I do. I really do. I'm still of the opinion that if it was a straight choice between winning the Europa or staying in the Premier League, I would choose the Premier League.
I'm going to flip that though for you, because...
But I don't think it is.
No, I think more importantly, from a football perspective, since football began really in the professional era, momentum matters. We saw a lack of momentum last night because there are always changes, and I actually would flip it and say if he plays the same team in those few midweek games we've got left in the competition, if we manage to keep going, that's going to help, not hinder.
Yeah.
Not they're not mutually exclusive anyway. People say, and I jokingly said it about if I had a choice, what would you choose? But if we're doing well in Europe, I think it will feed into what we're doing in the Premier League, albeit that the standard of the teams and the defence is a lot lower as our attacking prowess.
We haven't had a run of form in this season. You know, normally in a season you get a run somewhere. Sometimes it's at the beginning and then you drop off, sometimes it's in the middle, sometimes at the end. We haven't really had that yet. We've been so inconsistent. If we could put that together now, then it could really take us places. And you need your strongest team for that.
Where I'm coming from here is that I remember last season we were fighting at the other end of the table to get as many points as we could to get in the Champions League, and it seemed as though they tired quite badly at the end of the season and missed out for that reason, because they had a heavy workload of FA Cup games to throw in there as well. And the reason for thinking it now is that I don't want the same thing to happen again in terms of a heavy cup load of fixtures impacting how they perform in the league. That's the point I'm trying to make here in terms of the workload that they have to cope with.
Yeah.
Don't you think last season, very different? I'm not so sure it was tiredness physically, and going out of the cup was a bad thing in terms of the mental state, but don't you think it came down more to certain key injuries right at the end that we'd been lucky enough to avoid all season? I still maintain when we're 2-1 up against Leicester and Ola Aina limped off with his calf injury, with hindsight, that's what not derailed our season. It was an amazing season, but derailed that top four thing, top four challenge.
To be fair,
and we've looked tired all season anyway, let's be honest.
Yeah, to be fair, and I think going back to, don't want to harp on about last season, but to be fair, the teams did suss out Forest, didn't they, towards the end with Nuno's tactics. So yeah, maybe that was more of a reason as well. There is some good news on the horizon though. If you see the reports coming out today that Chris Wood is eyeing a return for the last 6 or 7 games, so that would be very much a welcome boost psychologically, if nothing else, if you can get him in the team. So how much of a welcome return would he be, Kate, for that last 6 or 7 games?
Yes. Yeah, do you know what? We are all just waiting for Chris Wood to come riding in on his white Charger and start banging some goals in the back of the net. That's the danger, isn't it? That you are expecting Chris Wood to return as he left, as a Premier League striker that's scoring goals, which there is no guarantee of because he's been injured and he's been out for a very long time. So there will be an element of him needing to get playing back into form, back into fitness. Mm-hmm. But there is no downside to Chris Wood being fit and being back in our team. That is only good. It's only good. It only brings good things. So if that is true, then yes, please.
Well, he can't do any worse than Luca, can he, at the moment? So.
Even if it's a case of, because in reality, he might come back for a game or two, and the first game back after a long injury break like that, sometimes things happen because of the adrenaline or whatever. I remember Gary Burt was talking about it, even back then it was the case. But it would take a number of games to get up to speed. But even if it's him coming on against tired legs for the last 15-20 minutes and we're bombarding the box with 1,000,001 not very good crosses that we put in, at least he might get on the end of one of them. Yeah. And his last goal, incident, I think, was against Michelin, wasn't it? But and at least we might stop missing penalties. And like you said, with the state of the squad as it is, there is no downside. I don't see him riding on his white horse or his whatever horse and scoring 10 goals or 5 goals, but there's nothing to stop him in those 6. Well, if he comes into those 6 goals and scores 1, it's 1 more than any other centre forward has scored since he last scored at the City Ground, so you never know.
But it's the psychological lift, isn't it, of having him back. Yeah. Him coming back could lift and get the squad to provide that extra 10%, which it might be all that they need to get the results. So we'll see. So we've got that on the horizon. Very much in the short term is Brighton away on Sunday. Long trip down to the south coast. Brighton themselves are not in the best of form. They won away at Brentford last week, but Forest did that as well. So
who doesn't win away at Brentford?
Exactly. But prior to that, they had a run of no wins in 5, 3 defeats and 2 draws. So they're not in the greatest of form. we'd earmarked that one, Kate, as one Forest needed to win at the weekend as one of our 4. It's getting to that stage, isn't it, now, where they just need to find a way.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to say that after yesterday you feel slightly less confident. Because you do, because when you've seen them play badly, you do feel less confident. So I am less confident that they can pull something off. Anything, if we come back with anything, then it's massively valuable. I agree. I think their home form isn't great either, is it? Like that from what I've read, it's a tough game. They're all tough games. It's a long trip, but we'll be there. And you know, if we could get a goal, maybe even 2, like who knows? And I would like to see Taiwo on the bench for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Molo, they've lost 2 in a week. Any concern heading into Brighton on the back of 2 losses?
I think a draw would be a really good result, but I just don't see where a goal's going to come from against Van Heck and Dunk. They ripped us apart at the City Ground, do you remember? And I feel like they would have targeted this game as well as one to arrest their decline, because they've won a couple, haven't they, in the last month? They won their local derby against Palace, didn't they? Oh no, they lost to Palace. Sorry, I'm lying. So yeah, you know, depends, as we keep saying, which Forest turn up, and if we can get the ball over the line. What I think, I don't know if I said this on the last pod, but I was talking to one recently. The number of chances we've started to create, at some point, a bit like Brighton at home last season, there'll be a game where some of them go in. Just hope it's sooner rather than later and lifts that cloud of fear. Because those one-on-ones last night, they were pathetic. They weren't just bad, they were pathetic. You know, it was one of those where the first one from Jesus, he was clean through, it was brilliant work all round, including by him, and the keeper didn't have to do much. Second one was a much better save, but he was clean through by miles. He slowed himself down and steadied himself and smashed it within the range that the keeper could still reach. And they do that in training, they will score 99 times out of 100. Without a doubt. It's completely psychological. When you read the idiots saying stuff like, oh, they need shooting practice, why don't they practice shooting in training? What do they think they do in training? But it's very different, isn't it? It's like penalty shootouts. No professional footballer, in theory, should ever miss a penalty. You put that pressure on, it's different. Yeah. And our pressure is growing and growing and growing and growing. And how much time they had on those one-on-ones, and when I said pathetic, perhaps being a bit harsh, when they had that much time on those one-on-ones, when one of them was running through, I turned to her and said, we know he's not going to score. And then, sure enough, at least hit the target, I suppose. Progress.
Yes, it is important they get something out of Brighton, because they've got Man City away the following midweek, which none of us is in their right minds with any logical head-on would say they're going to get anything there. So you can probably chalk that one off, which then could easily put them behind West Ham and obviously still Spurs in the table. So it is important to get something out of Brighton away. So we've been going for nearly 50 minutes, which is ironic because this episode is actually our 50th episode. Would you believe? Yeah.
Really?
So
wow.
So yeah, 50 episodes. So let's bring any other business in, shall we? Kate, you go first.
Just another push for the gala, for the Garibaldi Girls. We've shared it on socials. We've spoken about it on the pod. Tickets are now available, so go to the Garibaldi Girls social media, and you can get the details for that. We'll try and pop it on our social media again. Let's get to the gala.
Excellent. Molo, anything from you?
I'm just going to pick my man of the match from last night, and I'm going for Stefan Ortega, because he kept us in the tie at one point to an extent. Because if they'd have got another goal or two in that first half, wow, that would have been scary.
Yeah, I think we've covered enough topics to select one of those as your Molo's moment as well, haven't we, somewhere along the line? Apologies, I forgot that. We were so engrossed in fireworks and pyrotechnics, weren't we? But very quickly then, Kate, you do your man of the match as well. Very quickly.
So, nobody was great. I'm actually going to go for Callum, just because that goal did end it. It ended it. And if he hadn't scored it, then goodness only knows what would have happened. Yeah. So I'm going for Callum.
Yeah, I'll go for Ortega as well, because I thought he kept them in it in that first half for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So anything to finish off, Mollo? No. Okay. All that remains for me to say then is we'll be back next week, Monday, bringing you our thoughts from Brighton, and look forward to another game across the, I nearly said main road then, but the Etihad.
Those are the days.
Those are the days. In the meantime, thanks everyone for listening and watching, and we shall talk to you again real soon.